Everybody can have an equal, mediocre salary. That's what we can afford. Or do you want the opportunity for greatness?
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie showing what a formidable presidential candidate he could be if he gets past New Jersey political scandals. And it's time now for our Sunday group. Syndicated columnist George Will, USA Today columnist Kirsten Powers, Kimberly Strassel from the Wall Street Journal, and Charles Lane of the Washington Post. Well, let's start with Chris Christie, who is trying to power through the bridge scandal, the Hoboken scandal, other scandals as the chairman of the Republican Governors Association. He's traveling around the country, but one of the problems is that a lot of potential candidates in 2014 don't want to be seen with him at this particular point. George, how serious is the damage to his candidacy, potential candidacy?
Well, it's been damaging in the sense that it killed a lot of momentum because he had all the news to himself. He had the Virginia governor's race, the New Jersey's governor's race, so it was all focused on him. Try a thought experiment, erase Bridgegate, and where would he be now? He'd be in better shape, but he has, the good luck is also bad luck in the sense that he's in danger of being a little bit too familiar by the time the next wave of candidates come in. If you believe, as I do, that the next presidential election will be decided on a crescent from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin particularly, you have to get 3 more presidential candidates out of those states. The governors of Kasich in Ohio, Snyder in Michigan, and Walker in Wisconsin.
And maybe Pence in Indiana.
And Pence in Indiana. So there's a danger that he's out there too early and the novelty will be gone, and people will say, that's an old face.
You know, it's more than just the bridge lane closures. There was a story in the Washington Post this week that indicated that Christie, when he was U.S. attorney, had made a deal with Bristol Myers Squibb, and the deal was that instead of charging them with securities fraud, they would do a kind of out-of-court settlement, and part of that was that they would give $5 million as a professorship to Seton Hall Law School, which just happens to be his alma mater. What about this whole issue, Kirsten, of the sort of transactional nature of the way Christie does business?
Well, it's obviously a problem. He says that that was a deal that was made by, it wasn't made by him, it was made by, the prosecutors, and he had nothing to do with it. But it certainly looks pretty bad that it's his alma mater. And so I think, one of the things about Christie is that he has been seen as, to a lot of people, as the most electable of the Republicans, even though he's not beloved by the Republican base. And so I think that all of these various hits make him seem less electable. And so in that sense, he loses one of his main arguments. Also, there's this now sort of storyline on him because of Bridgegate that, he's a bit of a bully. And so now a lot of things that used to look really good to a lot of people, like standing up to the teachers' unions, might start to look like, oh, there he goes, being a bully again.
Let's switch, if we can, to the Hillary Clinton story. There were no bombshells in these papers that actually had been out there for 4 years, but one enterprising reporter looked for them and found them, of Diane Blair, who was one of her absolutely closest friends in Arkansas, and they'd had a lot of private conversations, and Diane Blair, whether Hillary Clinton knew about it or not, just decided to keep a record of them. As I say, no bombshells, Kim, but it does dredge up all of the history about Monica Lewinsky, about how tough, some would say too tough, Hillary Clinton could be as First Lady. If we suffered from Clinton fatigue back in 2008, how is all of that going to wear in 2016?
It's like you said, it drags up this aura that always seems to follow the Clintons, no matter where they go. And so probably, if she runs in 2016, you're not going to have a bunch of young people who are going to be focused on Hillary Clinton's cattle futures deal way back when. Most of them don't know what that is. But what this does is it makes everyone, again, ask all of these questions, and you're starting to see them being directed at things like the Clinton Foundation and people who've donated money to them. For instance, there was a story out about a particular guy who's given a lot of money to it, and he also happened to have arranged a lot of visits to the State Department at the same time. So that's what it does, is it just redredges up this question about Hillary Clinton, and she's going to have to live with that throughout a 2016 run if she does it.
And then there is Benghazi, continuing holes in the story, as Karl Rove mentioned. The bipartisan report by the Senate Intelligence Committee that found that the attack was preventable. We ask you, of course, for questions, and we got this one on Twitter from Karen Eisenberg. How does Hillary overcome Benghazi? And this goes back to something I brought up with Strickland after her unanswered phone commercial in 2008, which she used to show Chuck that she could respond to a crisis, but Barack Obama couldn't. How do you answer Karen?
I think that's a great question because you could almost see the 30-second commercial the Republicans would make. They would take her commercial from 2008 and put it together with maybe her testimony at on Benghazi, where she said, "Oh, what is the big deal here?" And I think what all of this illustrates is a funny thing that Hillary and Christie have in common. You know, Robert Penn Warren wrote in All the King's Men, there is always something. Every politician has something in their closet. These two have a lot of somethings because they've been...
And it's spilling out of their closet.
Yeah,
We've seen it all.
They've been around a long time. They have long records, and in Chris Christie's case, a long record in a state notorious for being kind of a political swamp. So what we're seeing here is on both sides, they're being set up already 3 years ahead of 2016, even before either of them has been declared, as the opposition are rummaging through the closet, and there's plenty there.
We've got about a minute left, George, and I want to ask you, for all of this talk about Bridgegate and the Blair papers and all of that, how does all of this compare to the Obama record, in the sense that if people feel good about Barack Obama in 2016, that they're going to feel good about Democrats and feel good potentially about a third Democratic term, as we saw with Bush following Reagan. And conversely, if they feel really bad about Barack Obama, as negatively as they do now, it almost doesn't matter. It's going to be really a tremendous burden on the Democrats and good for Republicans.
It is probable that 2016 will be the fourth consecutive election cycle in which Obamacare is a major issue. That will focus attention on the fact that the first time Hillary Clinton stepped onto the center stage of American politics was 1993, when there was talk of a co-presidency, vote for me, said Bill Clinton, 2 for the price of 1, and he turned health care over to his wife, who, in a process both gargantuan and opaque, produced a health care plan so rococo and implausible that neither the House or the Senate, both controlled by Democrats, would even bring it to a vote. So if health care, as I expect it will be a continuing issue in 2016, she has some explaining to do.
And we should point out that in the Blair papers, she complains, moans about having to go to Congress and deal with the members of Congress on Hillary care. And I think the phrase is suck up to them, because she has to convince them that they're part of the process when she really doesn't think that they are.